Humans are the only species that can lie perfectly still, completely safe, surrounded by comfort, and yet feel deeply exhausted. Not because the body is weak, but because the mind refuses to power down. Evolution never designed us to rest in abundance. Our nervous system was shaped in a world where stillness meant danger, silence meant vulnerability, and doing nothing often meant dying. So even when survival no longer demands effort, the brain keeps spending energy as if something has been lost, forgotten, or is about to go wrong. We carry ancient alertness into a modern world that no longer needs it. And that mismatch quietly drains us. This exhaustion does not come from action, but from awareness itself, from constantly existing inside a mind that never stops scanning for meaning, threats, and unfinished questions. So if rest is everywhere now, and survival is no longer the problem, why does simply being human still feel so tiring? The human nervous system was not built for comfort, calm rooms, or long hours of stillness. And this matters more than most people realize when they wonder why they feel tired, even while doing nothing. For most of human history, rest was short, light, and risky. Because the world was full of quiet threats that could appear without warning. A resting body was a vulnerable body, and a sleeping mind could mean death. So the brain learned a simple rule very early on. Staying alert was safer than relaxing too deeply. That rule became wired into the nervous system long before houses, beds, or peaceful nights existed. Even when the body stopped moving, the brain stayed active, scanning the environment, listening for danger, and preparing for sudden action. This design helped early humans survive. But it also came with a hidden cost that still follows us today. The modern world may feel safe, but the nervous system does not update itself quickly, and it still behaves as if safety is temporary and rest must be earned. This is why doing nothing does not feel neutral to the human brain. Stillness does not signal peace, it signals uncertainty. When the body slows down, the brain does not interpret this as permission to rest. Instead, it fills the silence with thoughts, memories, and imagined problems, because silence once meant exposure. This constant low-level alertness uses energy, even when there is no physical movement at all. Over time, that energy drain feels like fatigue, not the sharp exhaustion of hard work, but a dull heaviness that settles in without a clear cause. The body may be relaxed, but the nervous system is quietly working in the background, maintaining a state of readiness that no longer has a clear purpose. This is not a flaw in modern people. It is a leftover survival pattern from a time when human life depended on never fully letting go. The brain learned to associate safety with movement, vigilance, and engagement, not with rest, and that association never disappeared. So, when a modern human sits still, lies down, or pauses for too long, the nervous system does not switch off. It keeps checking, keeps preparing, and keeps spending energy as if something important might happen next. This is why mental tiredness can appear without effort, without stress, and without visible struggle. It comes from carrying an ancient alert system into a world that no longer requires it. The feeling of being tired while doing nothing is not laziness, and it is not weakness. It is the quiet weight of a nervous system that was designed for survival, not peace, and that design continues to shape how rest feels to the human mind today. The nervous system does not measure safety the way modern humans think it does. And this misunderstanding sits at the center of why rest often feels tiring instead of refreshing. For early humans, safety was not a stable condition that could be assumed and forgotten. It was temporary, fragile, and constantly changing. A quiet moment could mean nothing was happening, or it could mean something dangerous was approaching. Because of this uncertainty, the brain learned to treat calm not as relief, but as a moment that required closer attention. This is why stillness activates thought instead of shutting it down. When the body stops moving, the nervous system increases internal activity, filling the space with mental scanning, recalling past dangers, and imagining possible outcomes. None of this is conscious choice. It is an automatic response shaped by thousands of generations who survived by never fully relaxing. In that ancient world, doing nothing was rarely neutral. It either meant hiding, waiting, or being unaware of what was coming next. The brain adapted to assume that inactivity required vigilance, not surrender. This pattern became deeply embedded in human biology long before language, culture, or complex tools appeared. Even now, when physical threats are rare, the nervous system still follows the same old rule. It treats quiet as a signal to check internally for problems. That internal checking uses energy. It keeps muscles slightly tense, thoughts lightly active, and attention loosely engaged. Over hours and days, this low-level activation becomes exhausting, even though the person may feel like they have done nothing at all. Around the midpoint of human evolution, when early humans began spending more time planning, remembering, and anticipating rather than reacting instantly, this internal activity grew even stronger. The brain expanded not only to solve problems, but to rehearse them in advance. This ability helped humans survive complex environments, but it also increased the cost of mental rest. A mind that can imagine future danger does not easily power down. It keeps running scenarios quietly in the background, even during moments of physical comfort. This is why lying on a bed, sitting in a chair, or staring at a wall can feel strangely draining. The body has stopped, but the brain is still doing what it evolved to do: prepare. This preparation no longer has a clear target, so it turns inward. Thoughts circle, memories surface, small worries feel larger than they should. None of this feels dramatic, but all of it consumes energy. This is not a malfunction. It is the natural behavior of a nervous system that was built to survive uncertainty, not to enjoy ease. Modern life offers safety without effort, but the human nervous system does not recognize effort-free safety as complete safety. It waits for confirmation that never comes, so it keeps working. It keeps checking. It keeps burning energy quietly. This is why mental tiredness often appears without stress, without sadness, and without physical strain. It comes from carrying an ancient survival engine into a world that no longer requires constant readiness. The exhaustion people feel while doing nothing is the body paying the ongoing cost of a nervous system that never learned how to truly stop. Because for most of human history, stopping completely was never an option. The final layer of this first axis is where the ancient nervous system meets the modern idea of rest, and where the quiet fatigue of doing nothing becomes fully visible. For most of human history, rest was not something you chose. It was something forced by darkness, injury, or exhaustion. And it never lasted long. Even moments of pause were shallow, because the environment demanded readiness. This trained the nervous system to associate true safety not with stillness, but with control and awareness. When early humans stopped moving, they did not stop paying attention. They listened more closely. They watched more carefully. They stayed half ready to react. Over thousands of generations, this pattern became normal. The brain learned that letting go completely was risky, so it never developed a clear-off switch. In the modern world, people try to rest in ways that look logical to the body but feel confusing to the nervous system. Sitting quietly, lying down during the day, or doing nothing at all sends mixed signals. The muscles relax, but the brain does not receive a clear message that the environment is secure. There is no natural cue that says the struggle is over. No sunset that forces rest. No shared group vigilance that allows one person to sleep deeply. Instead, the individual is alone with a brain that evolved to stay alert when alone. So the nervous system fills the gap. It generates thoughts, replays experiences, and looks for something that needs attention. This internal activity is subtle, but it is constant, and it costs energy. That cost is felt as tiredness without effort. Around the origin of modern humans, when social structures became more complex and individuals had to rely more on internal judgment rather than immediate physical signals, this problem intensified. The brain took on more responsibility for monitoring safety, status, and direction. That responsibility did not disappear when the physical world became easier. It stayed. Today, when a person does nothing, the nervous system interprets the lack of external demands as a moment to turn inward and review everything that might matter. This review has no clear endpoint. There is always something unfinished, something uncertain, something that could be improved or avoided. The nervous system treats these mental possibilities the same way it once treated physical threats. It stays engaged. Over time, this creates a background fatigue that feels different from physical exhaustion. It is not sharp or urgent. It is dull, persistent, and difficult to explain. People often blame themselves for it, assuming they are weak or unmotivated. But this tiredness is not a personal failure. It is the predictable outcome of a system designed for survival in a dangerous world, now placed in an environment where danger is rare but mental activity is endless. The nervous system never learned how to rest without external permission, because for most of human existence, that permission never came. So even now, when nothing is required, the system keeps working. It keeps watching. It keeps preparing. And the energy it spends doing this becomes the quiet exhaustion that follows modern humans into their moments of stillness. Awareness is not a free upgrade in human evolution, and this is where tiredness begins to move beyond the body and settle deeply into the mind. Long before humans built tools or stories, awareness served one clear purpose: to notice changes that might signal danger or opportunity. Early awareness was simple and practical. It helped humans detect movement, sounds, and patterns that mattered for survival. But as the human brain slowly grew more complex, awareness expanded beyond the present moment. Humans became able to observe not only the world around them, but also their own thoughts, memories, and emotions. This shift changed everything. Awareness stopped being just a survival tool and became a constant internal observer. From that point on, humans were no longer simply living, they were watching themselves live. This internal watching requires energy. A mind that is aware does not simply react and move on. It reflects, compares, evaluates, and questions. Even when the body is still, awareness keeps working. It notices time passing. It notices sensations. It notices the absence of activity. For early humans, this self-awareness helped with learning and adaptation, but it also created a new kind of mental load. The brain now had to manage not just the environment, but the experience of being a human within it. Awareness does not sleep just because the body rests. It stays alert to internal signals the same way it once stayed alert to external threats. Hunger, discomfort, boredom, and uncertainty all become objects of attention. Each one pulls energy. Over thousands of years, this constant internal monitoring became normal. The human mind learned to stay lightly engaged at all times because awareness once meant control, and control meant survival. In the modern world, this same awareness continues, even when survival no longer depends on it. When a person lies down to rest, awareness does not fade. It turns inward. It notices thoughts drifting. It notices the body breathing. It notices time slowing. Instead of resting, the mind quietly evaluates the experience of resting. This evaluation consumes energy. It creates a sense of mental activity without visible appearance. People often describe this as feeling tired, but unable to explain why. There is no task to point to, no effort to measure. The tiredness comes from sustained awareness itself. From an evolutionary perspective, this makes sense. A fully unconscious mind was once dangerous. Awareness kept humans alive in uncertain conditions. But awareness was never meant to run continuously in a safe environment with no clear endpoint. The modern human mind does exactly that. It stays aware without a clear purpose, without resolution, and without rest. This is why mental fatigue can appear even in calm moments. Awareness keeps the nervous system slightly activated, slightly engaged, slightly prepared. Over time, this becomes draining. The cost of awareness is not dramatic or immediate. It builds quietly, hour by hour, day by day. The human brain pays this cost simply by being aware of itself. This is not a defect. It is the natural outcome of an evolutionary shift that gave humans the ability to reflect, plan, and imagine. But that ability came with a price. Awareness expanded human potential. But it also created a form of tiredness that no amount of physical rest alone can fully resolve. As awareness deepened in human evolution, it began to change not only what humans noticed, but how long they stayed with what they noticed. And this extended attention became another quiet source of fatigue. Early awareness was brief and reactive. A sound was heard, a movement was seen, a response followed. But as the human brain developed the ability to hold ideas in mind, awareness stopped passing quickly. Thoughts could be revisited. Memories could be replayed. Possible futures could be imagined again and again. This ability helped humans learn from experience, but it also removed the natural ending point of mental activity. Awareness no longer faded when a situation ended. It lingered. The brain began to rehearse events long after they were over, and to prepare for events that might never happen. This shift created a new kind of effort that required no movement at all. The body could be still, but awareness could remain busy for hours. From an evolutionary point of view, this made sense. A mind that reviewed past mistakes, and anticipated future danger had a better chance of survival. But this process demanded energy, and that demand never fully turned off. Awareness became something that ran in the background, even during moments of rest. Over time, the brain learned to treat awareness itself as a responsibility. To be aware meant to be ready. To stop paying attention felt unsafe. This is why modern humans often feel uneasy when their mind begins to quiet. The nervous system interprets reduced awareness as a loss of control, so awareness returns on its own, bringing thoughts, images, and concerns back into focus. This cycle is subtle and automatic. People rarely notice it happening, but they feel its effect as mental tiredness. The mind has been active without clear purpose for too long. As human societies became more complex, awareness expanded again. Humans became aware not only of physical danger, but of social position, expectations, and future outcomes. The mind began to track abstract threats that had no clear shape or timeline. Unlike physical danger, these threats could not be resolved by action. They could only be thought about. Awareness stayed engaged because there was nothing to finish. This created a form of mental tension that never fully released. Even in moments of safety, awareness kept checking for meaning, direction, and reassurance. This checking required energy, but it did not feel like work. It felt like thinking. When modern humans lie down and do nothing, awareness does not disappear. It scans inward. It notices thoughts drifting, then evaluates them. It notices sensations, then labels them. It notices time passing, then reacts to it. Each of these actions is small, but together they form a steady drain. The body rests, but awareness remains active. This is why rest often feels incomplete. Physical comfort alone does not satisfy a system that evolved to stay mentally engaged. The tiredness that follows is not caused by effort, but by sustained attention without resolution. Awareness was never meant to operate continuously without external demand. In the modern world, it does exactly that. It stays on, quietly consuming energy, even when nothing is required. This is why humans can feel tired after a day of doing very little. Awareness has been working the entire time, maintaining a level of mental presence that once helped humans survive, but now quietly exhausts them. The final part of this axis brings awareness to its quiet conclusion, showing how a system designed to notice everything slowly becomes a source of exhaustion when there is nothing left to respond to. In early human life, awareness always pointed outward. There was something to watch, something to track, something that required a decision. Awareness had direction, and direction gave it purpose. When a threat passed or an action was taken, attention naturally shifted or faded. But as human awareness turned inward, it lost that clear endpoint. The mind began to observe itself without a signal telling it when to stop. This self-observation became continuous. Thoughts were noticed, then evaluated. Feelings were felt, then examined. Silence itself became something to be aware of. This created a loop that did not exist in earlier stages of human evolution. Awareness was no longer just a tool. It became an environment the human mind lived inside. Living inside awareness costs energy. A mind that constantly notices itself never fully relaxes. It stays slightly engaged, slightly active, even in moments meant for rest. From the origin of this shift, humans carried a new kind of burden. They were no longer only responding to life, they were interpreting it at all times. This interpretation required effort, even when it felt passive. With no external task to focus on, the mind turned inward and amplified small sensations, minor thoughts, and vague concerns. This is why stillness can feel uncomfortable and tiring. Awareness fills the empty space with mental activity because it was never designed to sit idle. In the modern world, people often try to rest by removing stimulation. They turn off screens, lie down, and seek quiet. But for a mind shaped by evolution to stay alert, the absence of stimulation does not mean rest. It means there is more room for awareness to operate. The mind begins to monitor breathing, posture, thoughts, and time itself. Each act of noticing is small, but together they maintain mental activity. This activity uses energy without producing action. The result is a feeling of tiredness that has no obvious cause. People may think they have rested, yet they feel drained. The awareness system has been running the entire time. From an evolutionary perspective, this makes sense. A mind that lost awareness completely was once at risk. So awareness learned to stay present no matter what. It learned to fill silence, to occupy stillness, and to remain lightly engaged. That strategy kept humans alive. But it also removed the natural boundary between activity and rest. Awareness became constant, and constant awareness became costly. This is the final reason awareness contributes so strongly to feeling tired while doing nothing. It does not know how to stop on its own. It waits for a reason to turn off. But modern life rarely provides one, so it stays on, quietly consuming energy, shaping a form of exhaustion that feels invisible but deeply human. Memory was never meant to be a place humans lived inside, yet this is exactly where much of modern tiredness begins. In early human life, memory had a simple function. It helped people remember where danger had appeared, where food had been found, and which actions had led to survival. Once a situation ended, memory faded into the background. It waited quietly until it was needed again. But as the human brain evolved, memory changed. It became richer, more detailed, and more emotional. Humans gained the ability to replay experiences long after they were over, to imagine how things could have gone differently, and to store events not just as facts, but as personal meaning. This expansion gave humans a powerful advantage, but it also removed memory's natural limit. Memory stopped being something the brain accessed occasionally. It became something the mind returned to constantly. This shift created a new kind of mental activity that did not depend on the present moment. The body could be safe, still, and comfortable, yet memory could pull the mind backward in time. It could revive old fears, unfinished moments, and unresolved questions. From an evolutionary perspective, this made sense. Remembering mistakes helped avoid repeating them. Remembering danger increased caution. But this system was designed for a world where threats were immediate and resolution came through action. In the modern world, memory often has no action to lead to. It replays without release. This replay uses energy. Each remembered moment activates the nervous system in small ways. Muscles tighten slightly. Emotions shift. Attention narrows. Even when a person is lying down and doing nothing, memory can recreate situations that once required effort or alertness. The brain responds as if something is happening now, even when it is not. Over time, this constant background replay becomes exhausting. The tiredness does not feel dramatic. It feels dull and persistent, as if the mind has been working quietly all day. This is because it has. Human memory was never designed to operate continuously without purpose. It was meant to guide action, not to loop endlessly. As humans became more socially complex, memory took on an even heavier role. People began remembering not only physical events, but social interactions, words spoken, expressions seen, and judgments imagined. These memories did not fade easily because they affected belonging and status, which were critical to survival. The brain learned to keep these memories active, just in case they were needed again. This kept humans socially aware, but it also kept memory switched on. Today, when a person rests, memory does not rest with them. It surfaces fragments of the past without invitation. It revisits conversations. It recalls mistakes. It brings up moments that no longer matter physically, but still carry emotional weight. Each recall costs energy, even if it feels passive. This is why mental tiredness can feel heavier after periods of stillness. With no external task to focus on, memory fills the space. It replays the past because that is what it evolved to do when nothing else demands attention. The human brain carries memory as a survival tool, but it now uses it in a world where survival rarely requires constant review of the past. The result is a quiet exhaustion that comes not from effort, but from remembering without resolution. As memory grew stronger in the human brain, it stopped acting like a simple storage system and began behaving more like an active process, and this shift added another layer to human exhaustion. Early memory was practical. It stored what was necessary and released what was no longer useful. But as humans developed language, imagination, and social awareness, memory became tied to identity. Experiences were no longer just events. They became stories about who a person was, what they had lost, and what they feared repeating. This made memory harder to silence. When memory carries personal meaning, it does not wait quietly. It looks for attention. It pulls the mind back to moments that shaped survival, belonging, or self-worth. This pull happens automatically. Even during rest, the brain scans stored experiences for patterns that might still matter. From an evolutionary point of view, this behavior was protective. A human who remembered social rejection or past danger could avoid similar situations in the future. But this protection came at a cost. Memory began to stay active even when there was no immediate threat. The nervous system responded to remembered events as if they were still relevant. Heart rate changed slightly. Muscles held tension. Emotions resurfaced. All of this required energy. The body remained still, but the internal systems stayed engaged. Over time, this engagement became a steady drain rather than a sharp response. Human memory also lost its clear boundary between past and present. The brain does not strongly distinguish between something happening now and something vividly remembered. Both activate similar pathways. This means that recalling a stressful moment can quietly recreate the body state associated with it. When memory loops, the nervous system repeatedly enters mild alert mode without external cause. This is exhausting in a subtle way. The person may not feel stressed, yet they feel tired. The effort is invisible, but it is constant. As humans became more reflective, memory expanded again. People began revisiting events not to learn from them, but to judge them. Memory turned into evaluation. What should have been done differently? What was said wrong? What might still be at risk? This self-review had survival value in early social groups, where mistakes could threaten inclusion. But modern life rarely provides closure for these evaluations. There is no clear signal that says the review is complete. So memory keeps working. It keeps presenting old material for inspection. During moments of rest, when external demands are low, memory becomes louder. The mind fills the quiet with familiar scenes because it is trained to use the past to prepare for the future. This preparation once required action. Now it often has nowhere to go. The energy spent remembering does not lead to resolution. It leads to fatigue. This is why people often feel more tired after lying still than after gentle activity. Movement gives memory less space. Stillness gives it room to operate. Memory was designed to support survival, not to occupy rest. But in the modern human mind, it does exactly that. It stays active, quietly consuming energy, replaying the past without clear purpose. The tiredness that follows is not caused by effort or emotion alone. It is the cost of carrying a memory system that no longer knows when to stop. The final part of this axis shows how memory, once a tool for survival, becomes a constant presence that quietly drains energy when it no longer has a clear task. In early human life, memory always pointed toward action. A remembered danger led to avoidance. A remembered success led to repetition. Memory had direction, and direction allowed it to rest once a response was chosen. But as human life became less immediately dangerous and more mentally complex, memory lost that direction. It continued to present information, but there was often nothing to do with it. The brain kept memories active without resolution. This is where fatigue settles in. Memory does not simply store the past, it reactivates it. Each time a memory surfaces, the nervous system responds as if something important is happening. Even mild memories trigger small changes in attention, posture, and emotion. Over time, these small responses add up. The body remains still, but the internal system keeps adjusting. This adjustment costs energy. In the modern world, memory also competes with rest. When a person lies down to do nothing, memory fills the space that action once occupied. There is no clear signal telling the brain that review is no longer needed. So it continues. It replays moments that feel unfinished. Because unfinished situations once required caution, the brain treats unresolved memories as open threats, even when they no longer affect survival. This keeps the nervous system lightly activated. The tiredness that follows feels vague and hard to explain, because it does not come from effort in the present. It comes from effort spent responding to the past. Another important shift happened when humans began living longer and carrying more experiences across time. Memory grew heavier simply because there was more to remember. The brain did not evolve a system to selectively rest memory during safety. It evolved to preserve information in case it became useful again. During periods of inactivity, this accumulated memory becomes more noticeable. The mind drifts backward because there is no immediate task pulling it forward. This backward drift feels natural to the brain, but it keeps awareness engaged. Awareness plus memory creates a closed loop. Awareness notices memory. Memory feeds awareness. The loop continues without external input. This loop is tiring. It keeps mental activity alive when the body expects rest. People often describe this as feeling worn out without knowing why. There is no single thought to blame. There is no clear stressor. The exhaustion comes from the system itself running without pause. From an evolutionary standpoint, this was never a problem. Early humans rarely had long periods of safe stillness. Memory had frequent chances to discharge through action. Modern humans have many quiet moments with no physical demand. In those moments, memory has nowhere to go. It stays active. It keeps searching for relevance. It keeps consuming energy. Movement gives memory an outlet. Stillness leaves it looping. The human brain carries a memory system designed for survival across uncertainty. In a stable world, that system becomes a source of quiet fatigue. Memory does not know the danger is gone. It only knows how to remember. And remembering, without resolution, becomes one of the deepest reasons humans feel tired even when they do nothing. The human brain did not evolve to predict the future for comfort or control, but for survival, and this ability quietly drains energy even when nothing is happening. Early humans lived in environments where danger rarely announced itself. A predator could appear suddenly. Food could disappear without warning. Weather could shift quickly. Those who survived were often the ones who could sense patterns early and prepare before a threat fully arrived. This is where future-oriented thinking began. The brain learned to look ahead, to imagine what might happen next, and to adjust behavior in advance. At first, this ability was simple and tied closely to the environment. But as human cognition grew, anticipation expanded far beyond immediate survival. Humans began imagining futures that were not directly connected to present danger. They planned days ahead, seasons ahead, and eventually lives ahead. This shift changed how energy was used in the brain. Anticipation became a continuous process rather than a temporary one. The nervous system learned to stay slightly activated, preparing for outcomes that might never occur. This preparation uses energy, even in stillness. From an evolutionary perspective, this made sense. A human who prepared early had a better chance of survival. But this system was designed for a world where future threats were concrete and limited. Modern humans live in environments where future possibilities are endless and abstract. The brain still treats these imagined futures as meaningful. It runs simulations quietly in the background, checking scenarios, outcomes, and risks. Each simulation costs energy. The body may be resting, but the brain is rehearsing. This is why people often feel mentally tired without physical cause. The effort is not visible because it is internal. Anticipation does not require movement. It requires attention. As humans became more socially complex, anticipation expanded again. People began anticipating social outcomes, reactions, judgments, and consequences. These futures were harder to resolve because they depended on other minds. There was no clear signal that preparation was complete. So, anticipation continued. The brain stayed alert, waiting for information that would confirm safety. In early human groups, this vigilance protected belonging and cooperation. In modern life, it often has no clear endpoint. The nervous system remains engaged because the future never fully arrives. This creates a background tension that feels like fatigue. The mind is busy preparing, even when nothing is demanded in the present. When a modern human sits still or lies down, anticipation does not stop. With fewer external distractions, the brain turns more fully toward imagined futures. It reviews possibilities, worries about outcomes, and considers what might be required next. This activity feels passive, but it consumes energy steadily. The tiredness that follows is not dramatic or urgent. It is a low-level drain that builds quietly. Anticipation was never meant to operate continuously without resolution. It was meant to guide action and then rest. In a world where action is often delayed or unnecessary, anticipation remains active without release. This is the first reason future-oriented thinking contributes so strongly to feeling tired while doing nothing. The human brain keeps preparing for a future that does not arrive, and the energy spent waiting becomes exhaustion. As anticipation became more complex in human evolution, it slowly separated from direct action, and this separation made it far more exhausting than it was ever meant to be. In early human life, anticipating the future usually led to immediate movement. If danger was expected, the body prepared to run or hide. If food was expected, the group moved toward it. Anticipation ended when action began. That natural release allowed the nervous system to settle again. But as human societies grew and environments became more stable, anticipation no longer required quick physical response. The brain began preparing for futures that were distant, uncertain, and abstract. There was no clear moment when preparation could stop. The nervous system stayed active because it did not know when the imagined future would arrive, or if it ever would. This constant readiness used energy without providing relief. The brain was working, but the body remained still. Over time, this created a steady form of mental fatigue. Human anticipation also changed in another important way. It became layered. Instead of imagining one outcome, the brain began running many possibilities at once. What if this happens? What if it does not? What if something goes wrong later? This branching future thinking had survival value in uncertain environments, but it multiplied the amount of mental effort required. Each imagined path demanded attention. None of them could be resolved in the present moment. The nervous system responded by staying lightly tense, prepared for all possibilities at once. This tension is subtle. People often do not notice it directly. They feel it as tiredness. As awareness and memory combined with anticipation, the brain began pulling material from the past to prepare for the future. Old experiences were reviewed to predict outcomes. Mistakes were replayed to avoid repeating them. This created a closed loop where memory fed anticipation, and anticipation kept memory active. The body might be resting, but the mind was busy connecting past and future without pause. In early human life, this loop rarely ran for long. In modern life, action is often delayed, optional, or unnecessary. The loop continues on its own. The brain stays engaged because it was designed to treat unresolved futures as important. This is why modern humans often feel tired during moments of waiting, stillness, or inactivity. There is no immediate threat, but the brain is quietly preparing anyway. Another evolutionary shift intensified this problem. Humans began anticipating not just survival outcomes, but meaning and direction. The brain started asking where life was going, what should come next, and whether choices were correct. These questions have no clear answers. Anticipation became permanent. The nervous system learned to live in a state of gentle preparation without completion. This state uses energy continuously. It does not feel like stress. It feels like mental presence, but presence without resolution becomes draining. When modern humans lie down to rest, anticipation often becomes more noticeable. With fewer distractions, the mind turns toward what might happen later. Plans, concerns, and vague expectations surface. None of them require action now, but the brain does not know that. It treats future possibility as a signal to stay awake. This is why rest does not always feel restorative. The anticipation system is still running. It was designed to prepare humans for action, not to coexist with long periods of comfort and safety. In a world where the future is always open and rarely urgent, anticipation never fully shuts down. The energy it consumes accumulates quietly, shaping the tiredness people feel even when they have done nothing at all. The final part of this axis shows how anticipation, once meant to be brief and useful, becomes a constant background process that quietly exhausts the human mind. In early human environments, the future arrived quickly. Hunger led to searching. Danger led to escape. Anticipation had a clear purpose and a clear end. Once action was taken, the nervous system could settle. But in modern life, anticipation rarely meets its ending. Futures stretch far ahead, and many of them never arrive at all. The brain still prepares as if they will. It stays engaged because it was never designed to ignore possibility. For most of human evolution, ignoring the future was dangerous. So the nervous system learned to stay open, alert, and ready. This readiness costs energy, even when nothing happens. Over time, anticipation turns inward. The body reacts subtly, tightening muscles and sharpening attention, even though there is no immediate demand. The tiredness that follows feels soft and unclear, yet it accumulates steadily. Anticipation also learned to operate without permission. It does not wait for a problem to appear. It looks for one. When none is present, it creates possibilities to stay engaged. This behavior once protected humans from surprise. Now it keeps the nervous system lightly activated all the time. During moments of rest, when external signals are quiet, anticipation becomes louder. The mind scans ahead because there is nothing else pulling attention outward. It checks plans, imagines outcomes, and revisits questions that have no answers yet. This process feels passive, but it is work. The brain is rehearsing without movement. The energy spent here does not produce relief because there is no resolution. Anticipation does not know when to stop. It waits for certainty, but modern life rarely provides it. Another important shift happened when humans began living with long-term goals rather than immediate needs. The future expanded from hours and days to years and decades. The brain adapted by staying future-oriented more often. This adaptation increased survival and planning, but it also removed rest from the anticipation system. The mind began carrying unfinished futures at all times. Even during stillness, the nervous system remained engaged, holding open questions that could not be answered now. This is why doing nothing often feels uncomfortable rather than calming. The body pauses, but the mind remains oriented forward. Anticipation fills the space left by action. It is caused by a system designed to prepare for what is coming, now placed in a world where what is coming is rarely clear or urgent. The human brain keeps waiting, preparing, and adjusting without release. This waiting uses energy quietly and continuously. Anticipation was meant to guide survival, not to dominate rest. In modern humans, it does exactly that. It stays active when the body is still, shaping a deep, persistent tiredness that comes not from doing too much, but from endlessly preparing for what has not yet arrived. And this mismatch sits quietly beneath much of the tiredness people feel when they are doing nothing. The body is built to live in the present moment. Its signals are immediate and practical. Hunger means eat. Pain means stop. Fatigue means rest. Once a signal is addressed, the body can settle again. The mind works differently. As it evolved, it learned to move beyond the present. It learned to hold information across time, to compare moments, and to imagine outcomes that were not happening yet. This gave humans a powerful advantage, but it also separated the mind from the body's natural rhythm. The body responds and releases. The mind responds and continues. In early human life, this difference was less noticeable because daily survival kept body and mind aligned. Physical effort was constant. Movement, danger, and social interaction kept attention grounded in what was happening now. When the body rested, the mind usually followed because there was little extra capacity to wander. But as human environments became more stable, the body began resting more often, while the mind remained active. This created a quiet tension. The body entered stillness, the mind did not. From an evolutionary perspective, the mind had a reason to stay active. Even when the body was safe, the future was uncertain. The mind stayed alert to protect what the body could not sense directly. Over time, this alertness became normal. The mind learned to operate independently of physical demand. In the modern world, this separation becomes clear during moments of rest. A person may sit comfortably, with no physical discomfort, yet feel restless or tired. The mind has not. It continues to process information, review experiences, and prepare for what comes next. The body feels calm, but the mind remains engaged. This is why rest often feels incomplete. The body and mind are no longer resting together. This separation was never a problem in early human life because extended stillness was rare. The environment forced alignment. Modern life removes that force. People can remain physically inactive for long periods, while the mind continues working at full capacity. The nervous system does not recognize this state as true rest. It feels like something is missing. The body waits. The mind searches. Over time, the cost appears as fatigue. This fatigue is confusing because it does not match physical experience. A person may think they should feel rested, yet they do not. The reason is simple but deep. The body has stopped. The mind has not. Human evolution never provided a clear mechanism to synchronize rest between body and mind in safe, quiet conditions. The two systems evolved to cooperate under pressure, not to relax together in comfort. This is why doing nothing can feel draining. The body enters a low energy state. The mind remains in a moderate energy state. The difference creates friction inside the nervous system. That friction feels like tiredness without cause. It is not illness. It is not weakness. It is the result of a human design where the body lives now and the mind lives everywhere else. Until both systems rest together, the feeling of exhaustion can appear even in moments of complete physical ease. As the separation between body and mind became more pronounced, rest began to lose its meaning for the human nervous system, and this loss explains why stillness can feel tiring rather than restoring. The body understands rest through physical signals. Muscles relax, breathing slows, heart rate settles. These changes tell the body that effort has ended. The mind does not receive rest in the same way. It does not rely on muscle tension or movement to know when to stop. It relies on resolution. When a situation feels finished, the mind can release it. In early human life, most situations ended clearly. Hunger ended with food. Danger ended with escape. Conflict ended with distance. These endings allowed the mind to follow the body into rest. But as human life became less physically demanding and more mentally complex, endings became rare. Tasks extended beyond the present moment. Concerns carried over from one day to the next. Questions remained open. The mind stayed active because it had learned that unresolved situations required attention. Even when the body was calm, the mind remained engaged. This engagement costs energy. The body rests, but the nervous system stays partially activated. Over time, this partial activation becomes exhausting. The person feels tired without understanding why. From an evolutionary standpoint, this behavior was logical. A mind that stopped attending to unresolved matters could miss important changes, so the brain learned to stay alert until clarity appeared. In the modern world, clarity often does not come. Many concerns have no clear solution. Many responsibilities have no visible end. The mind waits anyway. It stays awake for answers that never arrive. During moments of physical stillness, this waiting becomes more noticeable. With fewer distractions, the mind turns toward unfinished matters. It reviews them quietly, not to solve them, but to keep them available. It keeps the nervous system from fully settling. The body may feel relaxed, but the mind feels suspended. This suspension is uncomfortable and tiring. Another layer of this mismatch comes from how the body responds to inactivity. The body expects rest to follow effort. When effort is missing, rest feels undeserved. The nervous system does not receive a clear signal that stopping is safe. The body rests mechanically, but the mind remains cautious. It continues to monitor, prepare, and evaluate. This creates an internal imbalance. The other does not. The energy difference between them creates a sense of heaviness. People often try to fix this by forcing relaxation, but effort does not resolve the mismatch. The problem is not tension, it is lack of alignment. The body and mind evolved to rest together after shared strain. Modern stillness separates them. This separation was never tested over long periods in human evolution. The result is a quiet fatigue that appears during inactivity. It is not caused by weakness or lack of discipline. It is caused by a system that no longer knows how to rest as a whole. Until the mind receives the same sense of completion that the body does, tiredness can persist even when the body has done nothing at all. The final part of this axis shows how the long-term separation between body and mind reshapes the experience of rest itself, turning stillness into a subtle source of fatigue. In early human life, rest followed exertion so closely that the two felt inseparable. The body worked, the body stopped, and the mind stopped with it. There was no expectation to rest without effort, and no environment that allowed long periods of safe inactivity. Because of this, the nervous system never learned how to interpret stillness on its own. It only learned how to recover after strain. In the modern world, people often enter stillness without having used their bodies in a meaningful way. The body becomes quiet, but the mind receives no signal that a cycle has been completed. It continues to search for purpose, direction, or resolution. This search keeps mental energy flowing even when physical energy demand is low. The result is a strange internal imbalance. The body feels inactive. The mind feels restless. The nervous system experiences this imbalance as fatigue. It is not the fatigue of effort, but the fatigue of unfinished alignment. The mind keeps scanning because it evolved to support the body during action, not to exist separately during long periods of comfort. When action disappears, the mind turns inward and begins working on abstract material instead. It reviews thoughts, evaluates feelings, and looks for something to engage with. None of this produces visible movement, but all of it uses energy. Over time, the nervous system remains in a middle state. It is not fully active, but it is not fully resting either. This middle state is draining. It creates a sense of heaviness and dull tiredness that does not lift with simple rest. People often misinterpret this feeling. They think they need more rest, when what they are missing is coordination between systems. The body is resting alone. The mind is not. Human evolution never required these two systems to operate independently for long periods. They were shaped to respond together to the same pressures. Modern life removes those pressures, but keeps the systems running. The mind does not know that the body no longer needs its constant involvement, so it stays engaged. This engagement becomes background noise. It feels normal, but it quietly consumes energy. This is why doing nothing can feel more tiring than gentle activity. Movement reconnects body and mind. It gives the nervous system a shared rhythm again. Stillness leaves them disconnected. The fatigue that follows is not a sign of damage. It is a sign of mismatch. The human organism was not designed to rest in pieces. It was designed to act and recover as a whole. When that wholeness is missing, rest loses its depth. The body stops, but the mind keeps waiting. And that waiting, without action and without resolution, becomes another reason humans feel tired even when they do nothing. Modern stillness looks like rest, but to the human nervous system it often feels unnatural, and this misunderstanding explains another deep layer of why people feel tired while doing nothing. In early human life, stillness was rare and usually meaningful. It happened at night, during injury, or when hiding from danger. Each form of stillness carried clear context. Darkness signaled group rest. Injury signaled recovery. Hiding signaled alert waiting. The nervous system learned to associate stillness with specific conditions, not comfort. There was no concept of neutral inactivity. If the body was still, something important was happening. This association became part of human biology, long before chairs, couches, or quiet rooms existed. The body and mind learned that stillness required attention, not relaxation. In the modern world, stillness appears without context. People sit for hours without danger, without injury, and without darkness. The nervous system does not recognize this as true rest. It does not receive the evolutionary signals that once allowed it to settle. Instead, it enters a state of mild confusion. The body is inactive, but the brain does not know why. With no clear reason for stillness, the nervous system fills the gap with internal activity. It checks posture, thoughts, sensations, and time. This checking uses energy. The person feels tired, not because they have done too much, but because the nervous system has been quietly working to interpret an unfamiliar state. A still human in daylight, without group protection or environmental cues, would once have been vulnerable. The brain learned to stay alert during such moments. That learning never disappeared. Today, when a person sits quietly during the day, the nervous system behaves as if something is missing. It waits for a signal that never comes. This waiting keeps it active. Modern stillness also lacks a natural ending. In early human life, stillness ended with sunrise, recovery, or movement. The nervous system knew when to shift states. Modern stillness can last indefinitely. There is no clear boundary telling the brain when it can fully disengage. So, it does not. It stays partially active, conserving nothing. Over time, this partial activation becomes exhausting. The tiredness feels different from physical fatigue. It feels dull, heavy, and vague. People often describe it as feeling drained without effort. This is because the effort is not visible. It is internal regulation. The nervous system is trying to make sense of a state it did not evolve to handle. Another layer of this problem comes from how modern stillness separates humans from natural rhythms. Early humans rested in response to light, temperature, and group behavior. These rhythms guided the nervous system into rest. Modern stillness ignores these cues. People rest under bright light, at irregular times, and alone. The nervous system receives mixed messages. The environment says be alert. The body says be still. The mind tries to reconcile the two. That reconciliation costs energy. This is why modern rest often fails to refresh. It does not align with the conditions the nervous system evolved to recognize as safe and complete. Doing nothing in the modern world is not the same as resting in an evolutionary sense. It is an unfamiliar state that requires interpretation. The nervous system stays engaged because it does not know how to relax inside it. The energy spent maintaining this engagement appears as tiredness. This tiredness is not a flaw of modern humans. It is the predictable result of placing an ancient system into a form of stillness it was never designed to understand. Modern stillness also removes the shared signals that once allowed the human nervous system to rest without fear, and this loss deepens the feeling of fatigue during inactivity. Early humans rarely rested alone. Stillness usually happened within a group, where others remained alert while one person rested. This shared vigilance reduced the individual burden. The nervous system could relax because responsibility was distributed. Someone else was watching. Someone else would react first. This allowed deeper rest. Even in dangerous environments, over thousands of years, the human brain adapted to this social protection. Rest was safe because it was collective. In the modern world, stillness is often solitary. A person sits alone in a quiet room, disconnected from others, with no visible signs of shared awareness. The nervous system does not interpret this as safety, it interprets it as exposure. Even if the person consciously knows they are safe, the deeper system does not respond to logic. It responds to patterns shaped by evolution. Alone and still once meant risk. So the nervous system stays partially alert. It listens more closely. It checks internal signals. It monitors the environment, even if nothing appears to be happening. This constant monitoring uses energy. The body feels inactive, but the nervous system is working. Over time, this work feels like tiredness. Another important change in modern stillness is the loss of clear sensory boundaries. In early human life, rest was supported by darkness, cooling temperatures, and reduced activity around the group. These cues told the nervous system it was time to shift states. Modern environments blur these signals. Artificial light extends day into night. Climate control removes temperature changes. Screens and sounds continue during supposed rest. The nervous system receives conflicting information. Part of it prepares for rest. Another part stays alert. This split keeps energy flowing. The system never fully settles. Even when a person tries to do nothing, the environment does not clearly support that choice. The brain remains engaged, trying to interpret whether rest is appropriate. This interpretation is tiring. Stillness also lacks physical grounding in modern life. Early rest followed physical exertion. The body had clear signals that effort had occurred. Muscles were used. Energy was spent. Recovery made sense. Modern stillness often follows mental activity instead. The body has not moved much. The nervous system does not register a completed cycle. It does not feel earned, so it stays cautious. The mind continues to work because the body has not provided a clear stopping point. This creates a loop where inactivity leads to more mental activity, not less. The more still the body becomes, the more the mind tries to compensate. This compensation uses energy quietly. The fatigue that results is confusing because it does not match behavior. People feel tired after doing very little, but the nervous system has been active the entire time, managing uncertainty, isolation, and unclear signals. From an evolutionary perspective, this makes sense. A human alone, inactive, and awake during the day was once in danger. The brain learned to stay alert in those conditions. That learning remains. Modern stillness recreates the posture of vulnerability without the protective context that once made rest safe. The nervous system responds as it always has. It stays engaged. It waits. It watches. This ongoing readiness drains energy slowly. The tiredness that follows is not dramatic. It feels like heaviness, lack of motivation, or mental fog. It is the cost of a system trying to protect itself in a situation it does not fully understand. Modern stillness looks peaceful, but to an ancient nervous system, it feels incomplete and uncertain. The energy spent managing that uncertainty becomes another reason humans feel tired even when they do nothing at all. The final part of this axis shows how modern stillness, when combined with long periods of inactivity, creates a state the human nervous system was never designed to stay in for very long. In early human life, stillness was temporary and followed by movement. People rested, then moved. They paused, then acted. This rhythm kept the nervous system flexible. It knew when to switch states. In the modern world, stillness often stretches on without a clear reason to end. People can remain inactive for hours, sometimes days, without physical demand forcing a change. The nervous system does not interpret this as rest. It interprets it as waiting without instruction. When a system built for action is forced to wait without purpose, it does not shut down. It stays lightly engaged, ready to respond. This readiness costs energy. Over time, the cost accumulates. The body feels heavy. The mind feels dull. Motivation fades. None of this comes from effort. It comes from prolonged uncertainty inside the nervous system. Another problem with modern stillness is that it removes natural feedback. In early life, movement confirmed safety or success. A hunt ended. A shelter was reached. A group gathered. These outcomes allowed the nervous system to relax. Modern inactivity provides no such confirmation. Sitting still does not resolve anything. The brain waits for a signal that effort is complete, but none arrives. So it keeps monitoring. This monitoring is subtle. It feels like background awareness, but it keeps energy flowing. The longer stillness lasts, the more the nervous system drifts into a low-grade alert state. This state is tiring because it prevents full rest without providing the stimulation of action. The system is caught in between. Modern stillness also encourages inward focus. With little external demand, attention turns toward thoughts and sensations. The nervous system begins checking the body, the breath, the mind itself. This inward checking was once useful during danger or injury. It is not meant to be constant. When it becomes constant, it keeps awareness active. Awareness without purpose becomes draining. The body may be relaxed, but the mind is still involved. This involvement consumes energy quietly. People often feel this as mental fog or emotional flatness. They are not overstimulated. They are under-challenged in a way the nervous system does not understand. Another important shift is that modern stillness often lacks meaning. Early rest had context. It protected life. It supported recovery. Modern inactivity often feels empty. The nervous system does not know what empty time is for, so it stays engaged, searching for direction. This search does not lead anywhere, but it uses energy. Over time, the nervous system becomes fatigued from maintaining readiness without reward. This fatigue feels different from physical exhaustion. It is softer, harder to locate, and slower to lift. Doing nothing does not resolve it, because doing nothing is part of the problem. The human nervous system was shaped to rest after action, not instead of it. When stillness replaces movement rather than following it, the system remains unsettled. This is why gentle movement often feels more refreshing than complete inactivity. Movement gives the nervous system a familiar pattern. It restores rhythm. Stillness without rhythm leaves the system suspended. The exhaustion that comes from modern stillness is not a failure of willpower. It is a design mismatch. The human organism expects rest to be part of a cycle, not a permanent state. When that cycle is broken, energy drains quietly. This is the final reason modern stillness contributes to feeling tired while doing nothing. The nervous system does not know how to end waiting without movement, so it keeps waiting, and the energy spent waiting becomes fatigue. Meaning was never meant to be a constant task, yet for humans it has quietly become one of the most draining sources of mental effort. In early human life, meaning was simple and immediate. Survival itself provided direction. Finding food, staying alive, protecting the group, and raising offspring gave life a clear structure. Actions mattered because they led directly to continued existence. There was little need to question purpose. The environment answered that question every day. As human intelligence grew and survival became more reliable, this structure began to loosen. The brain gained enough capacity to step back from immediate needs and ask broader questions. Why am I doing this? What does this lead to? What should come next? At first, this ability helped humans plan and cooperate, but over time, it changed the role of meaning itself. Meaning stopped being something provided by circumstances and became something the mind felt responsible for creating. This shift placed a new demand on the nervous system. The mind began searching for purpose, even when nothing was wrong. It treated meaning as another requirement that needed attention. This search uses energy. It requires comparison, evaluation, and imagination. The brain scans experiences for significance, wondering whether they matter enough, whether they are aligned with some larger direction. In early human life, this level of reflection was rare because daily survival kept attention anchored. In the modern world, survival no longer consumes most mental resources. The mind has space. That space is quickly filled with questions about meaning. When a person is active, these questions are quieter. Action gives the mind a temporary answer. When a person does nothing, meaning-seeking becomes louder. The mind turns inward and begins asking what this time is for, what it should be used for, and whether it is being wasted. These questions have no simple answers. They keep the nervous system engaged. The body may be resting, but the mind is working. From an evolutionary perspective, this makes sense. Humans who could assign meaning to actions were better able to cooperate, plan, and maintain social bonds. Meaning helped guide behavior in complex groups. But this system was never meant to run continuously without external guidance. It was meant to support action, not replace it. In modern life, meaning-seeking often operates without boundaries. There is no clear point where the search ends. The mind keeps checking whether life feels right, whether progress is being made, whether time is being used correctly. This checking becomes background activity. It does not feel urgent, but it never fully stops. The tiredness feels different from stress. It feels like a low-level weight, a sense of being worn down without effort. This is because the energy is being spent internally, maintaining a search that cannot be completed in the present moment. Early humans rarely had the luxury of asking whether their life had meaning. Their actions answered that question directly. Modern humans often have no such answers readily available, so the mind keeps searching. When a person lies down to rest or sits quietly, the absence of immediate purpose becomes noticeable. The nervous system does not interpret this as rest. It interprets it as lack of direction. It responds by increasing mental activity, trying to fill the gap. This activity costs energy. Meaning-seeking becomes a hidden form of labor. It runs quietly in the background, shaping thoughts and emotions without visible effort. This is why people can feel tired even on days when they have done very little. The mind has been working to answer a question it cannot resolve. Meaning was once provided by survival. Now it must be constructed internally. The human brain continues searching, evaluating, and adjusting, even in moments meant for rest. This ongoing effort is one of the deepest reasons humans feel exhausted while doing nothing. As meaning shifted from something given by life to something humans felt responsible for creating, the search itself became a continuous mental effort that quietly drains energy. In early human communities, meaning was embedded in shared routines. Roles were clear, survival tasks were visible, a person knew what was expected each day, and fulfilling that role provided a sense of completion. The nervous system could rest because direction was external. But as societies grew more complex and individual choice expanded, that external structure weakened. Meaning became less about meeting immediate needs and more about personal interpretation. The mind began asking whether actions were enough, whether they led somewhere valuable, and whether time was being used well. These questions have no clear stopping point. The brain keeps them open because they feel important. This openness keeps mental activity running even when the body is still. From an evolutionary perspective, this development had advantages. Humans who reflected on purpose could adapt to changing environments, cooperate more deeply, and plan beyond immediate survival. But the cost of this reflection was never fully tested over long periods of comfort and safety. In modern life, meaning-seeking often operates without interruption. There is always another comparison to make, another possibility to consider, another standard to measure against. The nervous system treats this search as unfinished work. It stays lightly engaged, waiting for a sense of resolution that rarely arrives. During moments of rest, this engagement becomes more noticeable. With fewer external demands, the mind turns toward evaluating life direction. It wonders whether progress is being made or missed. This evaluation feels passive, but it requires attention and energy. The body rests, but the mind remains busy. Over time, this imbalance creates fatigue. The tiredness does not feel sharp or urgent. It feels like a background heaviness, a sense of being mentally worn without clear effort. Another layer of exhaustion comes from the emotional weight attached to meaning. When meaning is personal, it becomes tied to identity. Actions are not just actions. They become statements about worth, success, or failure. This emotional charge increases the cost of thinking. Each reflection carries significance. The nervous system responds by staying alert, because what feels meaningful also feels risky. In early human life, failure often had immediate physical consequences. In modern life, the consequences are abstract, but emotionally powerful. The brain responds to them in similar ways. It stays engaged to avoid loss of meaning, status, or direction. When a person does nothing, the mind often fills the space by reviewing these concerns. It asks whether rest itself is meaningful or wasted. These questions keep the nervous system active. Rest no longer feels like rest. It feels like delay. The mind waits for a sense of purpose to return before it can settle. This waiting is tiring. Meaning-seeking was meant to guide action, not replace it. When action is absent, the search has nowhere to go. It loops. It revisits the same questions without resolution. This loop quietly consumes energy. The exhaustion that results is not caused by effort in the physical sense. It is caused by the mind maintaining a task that cannot be completed in the present moment. The human brain continues to search for meaning because it once helped survival. In a world where survival no longer provides clear answers, that search becomes endless. The nervous system keeps working, even in stillness. And the energy spent searching becomes another reason humans feel tired even when they do nothing. Rest feels wrong to the human nervous system, not because rest is harmful, but because struggle was once the condition that gave life structure and clarity. For most of human evolution, effort was constant. Survival demanded movement, attention, and cooperation every day. Food required work. Safety required vigilance. The nervous system learned to organize itself around this steady demand. Energy flowed toward action, and rest followed as a brief recovery before the next challenge. This rhythm shaped how the brain understands purpose and balance. Struggle was not something to escape. It was the normal state of being alive. When effort stopped, it meant danger had passed, or resources were temporarily secure. Rest made sense only in relation to struggle. In the modern world, this relationship has been reversed. Many people live with long periods of safety and comfort, interrupted by little physical demand. The nervous system does not recognize this as success. It experiences it as absence. Without struggle, there is no clear signal that life is functioning correctly. The brain waits for difficulty because difficulty once confirmed meaning and direction. When none appears, the system becomes unsettled. It stays active, searching for something to respond to. This search uses energy. The body may be resting, but the nervous system is not satisfied. It expects resistance, effort, or challenge to organize itself. Without these, it drifts into a low-grade state of alertness. This state feels like tiredness mixed with restlessness. It is not exhaustion from work. It is fatigue from lack of engagement. A human who stopped struggling entirely was often in trouble. Illness, injury, or exclusion could remove the need for effort, and those states were dangerous. The nervous system learned to associate effort with life continuing and effortlessness with risk. That association remains. In modern life, comfort does not trigger relaxation in the way people expect. It triggers uncertainty. The brain does not know what to do with long periods of ease. It fills the gap with internal activity, creating problems, goals, or concerns to restore a sense of movement. This internal effort consumes energy quietly. Over time, the absence of struggle becomes draining. The tiredness that follows is confusing because nothing obvious has caused it. People may feel unmotivated, heavy, or mentally dull. This is not because they are lazy. It is because their nervous system evolved to function best when responding to challenges. Struggle provided feedback. It told the brain that energy was being used correctly. Modern life removes much of that feedback. The nervous system keeps looking for it. When a person does nothing, the lack of resistance becomes noticeable. The brain does not interpret this as peace. It interprets it as missing information, so it stays engaged, waiting for something to push against. This engagement costs energy. Rest becomes incomplete because it is no longer paired with effort. The nervous system does not know how to relax without first working. It was not designed for long-term ease. It was designed for cycles of strain and recovery. When strain disappears, recovery loses its meaning. The result is a subtle exhaustion that appears during comfort rather than after work. This is the first reason rest feels wrong to a species built to struggle. The human brain expects effort to give rest its shape. Without effort, rest becomes empty. And that emptiness quietly drains energy instead of restoring it. As struggle faded from daily life, the human nervous system lost one of its most reliable ways to regulate itself. and this loss made rest feel incomplete and tiring. In early human environments, effort provided constant feedback. Muscles worked, breath changed, and outcomes were visible. The nervous system could measure success through physical signals. When effort ended, the body and mind knew why. Recovery followed naturally. But in modern life, many forms of effort are abstract, delayed, or invisible. Mental tasks replace physical ones. Outcomes are uncertain. Feedback is weak or absent. The nervous system does not receive clear confirmation that energy has been used well. Without that confirmation, it does not fully release. It stays partially engaged, waiting for proof that effort has occurred. This waiting consumes energy quietly. When a person does nothing, the nervous system does not interpret the absence of effort as earned rest. It interprets it as lack of engagement. The system expects resistance to organize attention and motivation. When resistance is missing, the brain begins to generate its own. It creates worries, goals, and internal pressure to replace the lost structure. This internal struggle feels real to the nervous system. It activates the same pathways that once responded to physical challenge. But unlike real struggle, it has no clear endpoint. The body remains still. Over time, this mismatch becomes exhausting. Another layer of fatigue comes from how modern struggle is disconnected from the body. Early humans struggled with their whole organism. The body, emotions, and attention moved together. Modern struggle often happens only in thought. The body sits still while the mind works. The nervous system receives mixed signals. Part of it senses inactivity. Another part senses effort. This confusion prevents full regulation. The system cannot decide whether to rest or engage. It hovers in between. That middle state drains energy steadily. People feel tired but restless, calm but dissatisfied. The nervous system is not malfunctioning. It is missing a familiar pattern. Struggle once gave meaning to rest because it created contrast. Without contrast, rest loses clarity. The brain waits for the moment when effort has clearly ended, but that moment never arrives. Modern tasks blur boundaries. Work follows people into rest. Goals remain unfinished. Expectations linger. The nervous system stays alert because it cannot close the loop. This constant openness keeps energy flowing. Even during inactivity, the system remains involved. Over time, the cost appears as fatigue. Another evolutionary factor deepens this effect. Early struggle was shared. Humans worked together, hunted together, and protected one another. Effort was visible and collective. The nervous system received social confirmation that struggle was happening and that rest was justified. Modern effort is often solitary and internal. There is little external acknowledgement. The nervous system does not register completion. It continues to search for signs that life is moving forward. When none are obvious, it creates internal motion. This motion feels like thinking, worrying, or planning. It is subtle, but it uses energy. This is why people can feel drained after days of inactivity. The nervous system has been trying to recreate the structure that struggle once provided. It does not find it. So it keeps trying. Rest feels unsatisfying because it lacks context. Without effort, rest has no reference point. The system does not know what it is resting from. This uncertainty keeps it awake. The fatigue that follows is not caused by doing too much. It is caused by a nervous system waiting for struggle to organize itself and finding none. Until effort and recovery are reconnected in a way the system understands, rest will continue to feel incomplete. The energy spent waiting for structure becomes another reason humans feel tired, even when they do nothing at all. The final part of this axis shows how a life with little visible struggle leaves the human nervous system without closure, turning comfort into a subtle source of exhaustion. In early human life, struggle ended clearly. A task was finished. A threat was avoided. A journey reached its destination. These endings allowed the nervous system to release energy and reset. Rest followed naturally because effort had reached a stopping point. In the modern world, struggle rarely ends in such clear ways. Challenges dissolve instead of completing. Tasks shift rather than finish. Goals move forward as soon as they are reached. The nervous system does not receive a signal that it can fully stand down, so it stays active. It waits for effort to return because effort once told the system that life was moving correctly. Without that signal, the brain feels suspended. It stays ready, alert, and unsatisfied. This readiness uses energy quietly. Over time, the energy drain appears as fatigue. Another important shift is that modern comfort often removes urgency. Early struggle had consequences. If effort stopped, survival was threatened. The nervous system learned to associate urgency with meaning. Modern life removes many immediate consequences. A person can pause without danger. The nervous system does not trust this. It keeps searching for urgency to anchor itself. When none is found, it creates internal pressure. This pressure feels like restlessness, boredom, or vague dissatisfaction. It is the system trying to recreate a familiar state. This internal pressure consumes energy. The body may be resting, but the nervous system is still working. Over time, this creates exhaustion that feels deeper than physical tiredness. The brain is carrying unresolved readiness. Modern humans often interpret this state as lack of motivation or low mood, but it is better understood as a system missing its evolutionary anchor. Struggle once provided structure. Without it, the nervous system floats without direction. Another layer of fatigue comes from how modern struggle is replaced by abstract pressure. Instead of physical resistance, people face expectations, comparisons, and delayed rewards. These forms of pressure do not satisfy the nervous system's need for clear engagement and release. The brain responds, but it cannot complete the cycle. It stays open. This openness is tiring. Even during periods of inactivity, the nervous system remains involved, waiting for a challenge that will organize energy again. Doing nothing does not calm this state. It often makes it more noticeable. The absence of struggle removes distraction, exposing the system's uncertainty. The nervous system interprets this as instability. It stays alert. The fatigue that results is not caused by comfort itself, but by the loss of rhythm that struggle once provided. Humans were shaped by cycles of effort and recovery. Modern life stretches recovery without effort, breaking the cycle. The system does not know how to rest without first being used, so it waits. And waiting, without resolution, costs energy. This is the final reason rest feels wrong to a species built to struggle. When effort disappears, rest loses its meaning. The nervous system remains engaged, searching for the next challenge. Until that search ends, comfort will continue to feel draining. The tiredness people feel while doing nothing is the quiet cost of a system designed for struggle, now living in ease. This final axis does not offer answers in the way the human mind usually expects, because the exhaustion being explored here is not a problem to solve, but a condition to notice. Throughout human evolution, tiredness usually had a clear cause. Hunger, injury, effort, or danger explained why the body needed to stop. Rest had meaning because it followed strain, but the tiredness modern humans feel while doing nothing does not follow that pattern. It appears without effort, without struggle, and without visible reason. This confuses the nervous system because it was built to understand fatigue as a signal tied to action. When fatigue appears without action, the system does not know how to respond. It looks for a cause. It searches for something wrong. That search itself becomes another source of energy use. From the origin of human awareness, the mind learned to explain sensations in order to regain control. If tiredness could be explained, it could be managed. But this form of exhaustion resists explanation because it is not the result of a single system failing. It is the combined cost of many systems doing exactly what they evolved to do in an environment that no longer matches their design. The nervous system stays alert because stillness once meant vulnerability. Awareness stays active because unconsciousness once meant danger. Memory keeps replaying because the past once protected the future. Anticipation keeps running because ignoring possibility once carried risk. Meaning keeps searching because survival once provided direction. None of these systems are broken. They are functioning correctly according to ancient rules. The problem is that they are functioning together in a world that no longer provides clear endpoints. The body can stop moving, but the mind cannot stop interpreting. The nervous system waits for signals that never come. This waiting consumes energy quietly. Over time, the accumulation feels like fatigue. This is why the tiredness feels deep and difficult to shake. It is not located in one place. It is spread across systems. Modern humans often try to fix this exhaustion by resting more, thinking less, or forcing relaxation. But effort does not resolve a mismatch. The system is not tired because it has done too much. It is tired because it has not been allowed to complete the cycles it was built around. This realization does not provide relief. It provides perspective. The question is no longer why am I tired when I do nothing, but what does this tiredness reveal about the kind of creature humans are? Humans did not evolve to live inside stillness, abundance, and safety for long periods without structure. They evolved to move, respond, struggle, recover, and repeat. When that rhythm disappears, tiredness fills the space it once occupied. This exhaustion is not a failure of discipline or character. It is the quiet signal of a system living outside its original context. In noticing this, the human mind reaches the edge of explanation. There is no simple solution offered here, only an open observation. If tiredness appears even in comfort, perhaps it is not asking to be removed, but to be understood. And if understanding does not make it disappear, it may still change how it is carried. The human nervous system continues to operate according to ancient logic, even as the world changes around it. That logic has a cost, and the cost is felt most clearly in the strange exhaustion that arrives when nothing at all is required. As this final axis deepens, the focus shifts away from causes and toward what it means to live with a nervous system that never truly arrives at rest. Throughout human history, discomfort usually pointed toward action. Pain meant move, fear meant escape, fatigue meant stop and recover. But the tiredness described here does not guide action in the same way. It lingers. It does not clearly say what to do next. This makes it unsettling. The mind looks for a fix because it was shaped to respond to problems. When no fix appears, the system stays engaged. It keeps scanning, questioning, and evaluating. That engagement quietly uses energy. The exhaustion deepens not because something is wrong, but because something remains unfinished. From an evolutionary perspective, unfinished states were dangerous. A threat not resolved could return. A task not completed could cost survival. The nervous system learned to keep attention on what was incomplete. In the modern world, many things remain incomplete by nature. Questions about direction, identity, and purpose do not resolve quickly. The nervous system treats these open-ended conditions as ongoing situations. It stays active because it does not know when it will be safe to stop. Even during stillness, the system waits. This waiting feels passive, but it is not. It requires constant readiness. Readiness consumes energy. Over time, this becomes fatigue. Modern humans often mistake this state for weakness or lack of motivation. They believe they should feel rested because nothing demands their effort. But the nervous system does not measure demand the same way. It measures uncertainty. When uncertainty remains, the system stays alert. This alertness is subtle. It does not feel like fear or stress. It feels like background tension, a sense that something has not settled. That tension drains energy slowly. This is why doing nothing can feel heavier than doing something simple. Simple action provides direction. It gives the nervous system a temporary endpoint. Stillness without direction leaves the system suspended. As the mind notices this exhaustion, it often tries to escape it. It seeks stimulation, distraction, or constant engagement. These behaviors are not signs of weakness. They are attempts to give the nervous system something familiar to respond to. Action, even meaningless action, feels better than unresolved stillness. But this does not solve the underlying condition. It only covers it. The deeper truth remains. Human tiredness and comfort reveals a mismatch between ancient design and modern life. It waits for struggle to justify rest, for endings to justify release, and for meaning to justify stillness. When these do not appear, tiredness takes their place. This is not a message that something must be fixed immediately. It is a signal that something fundamental has changed in the human environment faster than the human organism can adapt. In recognizing this, the question begins to shift again. The issue is not how to eliminate this tiredness, but how to live alongside it without turning it into another problem to solve. The nervous system is doing what it knows how to do. It is waiting, and waiting, in a world without clear resolution, becomes one of the quiet burdens of being human. The final part does not close the question, because the human nervous system itself has never learned how to close it. After everything explored so far, one truth remains quietly present. The exhaustion humans feel while doing nothing is not asking for an answer, but revealing a limit of design, a limit of adaptation, Humans carry systems shaped for danger, effort, uncertainty, and survival into a world defined by safety, comfort, and long stretches of stillness. The body adapts faster than the nervous system. The environment changes faster than evolution. The result is a form of tiredness that does not point forward or backward. It simply exists. When the body rests and the mind remains active, when awareness notices itself without purpose, when memory replays without resolution, when anticipation waits without arrival, when meaning searches without confirmation, the nervous system does what it has always done. It stays ready. It does not know how to stand down without a signal that never comes. This readiness uses energy, quietly, constantly. Over time, the energy spent waiting becomes fatigue, not dramatic, not urgent, just present. Modern humans often interpret this tiredness as a flaw to eliminate, something to optimize away. But what if it is not a problem to solve? What if it is the natural sensation of living inside a system that has outpaced its original context? In early human life, tiredness ended cycles. It led to sleep. It led to recovery. It had a place. Today, tiredness often floats without function. It does not resolve. It lingers. This lingering feels uncomfortable because the human mind expects signals to mean something actionable. When no action appears, the mind keeps working. It keeps asking. At this point, there is no instruction offered, no solution given, because solutions belong to systems that believe every signal must be corrected. This tiredness may not be asking for correction. It may be asking for recognition that the human organism is living in a world it did not evolve to fully understand. Recognition that stillness without structure is not neutral. Recognition that comfort without rhythm can drain as much as struggle. When this is seen clearly, something subtle changes. The tiredness is no longer interpreted as failure. It becomes information, not about productivity or discipline, but about mismatch, about a nervous system waiting for cycles that no longer exist. Whether humans will adapt to this new condition remains unknown. Evolution moves slowly. Culture moves quickly. In the space between them, tiredness appears, not as an enemy, but as a signal that the human story is unfinished. And perhaps the final question is not why humans feel tired when they do nothing, but whether doing nothing was ever meant to feel complete for a species that evolved to survive by never fully letting go. The final part of this axis shows how meaning, when it has no clear source or endpoint, quietly turns rest into another form of effort. In early human life, meaning ended when the day ended. Tasks were visible. Success or failure was clear. The nervous system could release because it knew what had been done. There was little room for doubt. But in modern life, meaning rarely reaches completion. There is no natural signal that says enough has been achieved. The mind keeps searching because it was shaped to treat purpose as necessary for survival. When purpose feels unclear, the nervous system stays active. It does not relax into uncertainty. It tries to resolve it. This effort continues even during moments meant for rest. When a person sits still or lies down, meaning-seeking often becomes louder. The absence of action creates space, and the mind fills that space by asking whether this time matters, whether it should be used differently, and whether something important is being missed. These questions do not demand immediate answers, but they keep awareness engaged. Awareness without resolution consumes energy. The body may be calm, but the mind is still working. Over time, this creates a specific kind of exhaustion. It is not the tiredness of doing too much. It is the tiredness of carrying an unfinished question. Another important shift is that modern meaning is often internal and private. Early humans shared meaning through collective goals. Modern humans often carry meaning alone. The nervous system interprets this as responsibility without support. It stays alert because something important depends on the individual. This sense of responsibility keeps mental activity running. Even during rest, the mind checks whether it is living correctly, choosing wisely, or moving in the right direction. This checking never fully ends. It has no clear criteria for completion. Meaning seeking also lacks rhythm. Early life alternated between effort and recovery. Meaning was reinforced through visible outcomes. Modern meaning stretches across long timelines. Goals take years. Fulfillment is delayed. The nervous system waits. It does not know when to stop waiting, so it remains engaged. This engagement drains energy quietly. People often feel this as mental fatigue without stress. There is no immediate pressure, yet there is no peace. The mind is occupied by something vague but important. Doing nothing does not resolve this state because meaning-seeking does not respond to stillness. It responds to clarity, and clarity is often absent. The nervous system remains active, holding open questions that cannot be answered now. Over time, this becomes exhausting. The tiredness feels deep because it touches identity. It is not about what the body has done. It is about what the mind feels responsible for becoming. Human evolution did not prepare the nervous system for a world where meaning is optional, abstract, and endless. It prepared it for survival-driven purpose with clear feedback. When that feedback disappears, the system does not shut down. It keeps searching. The energy spent searching becomes fatigue. This is why people can feel tired even on days filled with comfort and inactivity. The mind has been working to answer a question that has no present solution. Meaning, once a guide for action, becomes a background task that never completes. And that unfinished task quietly drains the human nervous system, turning stillness into another source of exhaustion.